Hello, and welcome to our session today. And today we're going to be talking about the subject of depression. So it's commonly thought that redundancy is a bereavement, and as such, after the bereavement, you will follow a bereavement cycle, which can contain sadness, acceptance, denial, depression. So today we're going to chat to Carr, who works with people, helping them step into their energy and basically empower themselves. And we're going to be talking about when depression is depression and when it is just a side product of redundancy, and that's not to belittle it. How to notice when it's the time when you should be getting clinical help from your doctor or therapist, and also some day-to-day suggestions of practical things that you can do to help change your energy. And job hunting, is a very tiring, draining thing to do. So I think even if you're not depressed, even if you have no symptoms of depression, the whole changing your energy part of this session will be really interesting for everybody. So welcome, Caroline.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. So before we get into it, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, well, the thing that I really do is I help people to shift their inner energy so that they can change their lives. And we do this in a very sort of light-hearted but profound way. I do it through coaching people, but also through training and teaching, giving talks as well. I have a very structured process that I use, yet it's very flexible. So I know there's a contradiction in terms, but it is important that people can see that there is a structure that they can follow, and it's based on 3 core pillars. The first one of those is thinking. The next one of those is feeling, in other words, the emotions. And the third one of those is know-how. That is your expertise, your knowledge and everything. When all 3 work together really well, then you're far more comfortable and balanced and in a really kind of powerful position to do whatever you want to do. Some people will say, well, where's the spirit element of that as well? Because that's understood to be a huge part of it. It's all in it. It goes without saying, because everything is energy. That's the standpoint that I come from. So given that, if we think of everything being vibrational energy, and even Einstein said that, let me just explain first of all. Inner vibrational energy is something that is very difficult to measure, because purely by trying to measure it, it shifts and it changes. So it's hard to measure it. So of course, a lot of people will say, well, it doesn't exist. How can you? Because it's not scientific proof. But all I can say is, having read a lot around the subject myself, because I'm no scientist, I would suggest that you really do Google things like quantum mechanics, law of attraction, any of those kinds of things that are going to just give you the things that you maybe need to know if you need to know in great detail how it all works. But what I do know is that vibrational energy means that energy is attracted to and is drawn towards more of the same. So when it comes to thinking, which of course is a huge part of depression, and I might say also, we know now that anxiety is really on the up because of COVID. And of course, depression and anxiety are linked. Anxiety, typically just thinking and thinking and thinking as much as anything else, let alone all the physical symptoms that go with that. But what we do know is that if you're thinking in a certain way, you're going to attract more of that. You're going to be drawn towards more of that. It's going to self-perpetuate. So it could be that you're thinking in a positive way, or it could be that you're thinking in a more negative way. When you're depressed, though, it can be incredibly difficult to get out of that. Depression can be so overwhelming for a person that no matter how many brilliant tools you've been given, and how many things you've learned to do and how much understanding of the whole thing you have, you can't even access it when you're really depressed. I know this because I have clients who do experience depression, and I say that's fine, just accept the fact that's how it is for the moment. If you've got the tools and you really get it, you'll pick them up when you need to, and they're evidence of this. Yeah. And I think the thing is with depression, when it's becoming, I mean, we all feel down sometimes, and this whole thing about anxiety, that gut-wrenching feeling of, you know, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay the bills? All it's dreadful and it's all overwhelming. But when it becomes that it's preoccupying you and just is the overriding feeling all the time, the depression or the anxiety, then it is important to get some help, because sometimes it's really hard to snap yourself out of that. You can't snap because you can't access what you need to access to help you to do that. So knowing, first of all, that we are all energy and that every thought and every emotion is to do with energy. It's empowering to know that you can do something about that. Now, when the first, so there's that's the vibrational energy aspect. There's also the relationship between the conscious mind and the subconscious. So I say I've been a hypnotherapist for many years, and I always talk about the conscious and the subconscious. I don't really use the term unconscious, but I know that many people do. If you think about it, you've got the conscious mind, which is part of the mind that we're in the here and now with, thinking, rationalizing, working 10 to the dozen, you know, making decisions. But then we've also got the subconscious, which is like a huge container for all the things that we're not using immediately. And the subconscious is the most marvelous part of the mind, because it's the part that kind of takes care of everything for you. It's just that you're not always aware of what it's doing. But essentially, it takes orders from the conscious mind. So if the conscious is feeding it with particular thoughts, which then of course affect the feelings, the conscious just takes it on board and will keep on churning out more of the same. So it's working with the vibrational energy in a similar way. The other thing is, and this is really another very important thing, is that we are programmed to be negative. And this comes from millions and millions of years ago. The brain became, as I understand it, programmed to be negative as a means to survive. So you'd be on the lookout, always on the alert, you know, what's happening? Am I going to be killed in a minute when I go hunting for the dinner, sort of thing? Because we don't need that now. So our default position tends to be negative, and I say happily, but we will revert to that, whatever's going on. So we have to work really millions of times harder to change that, so that everything starts to become aligned to more positive and upbeat. And I've got this visual here, because I like to think of it as a watch, okay? When you're in a crisis, when something happens and you've got a major decision to make, or you're in a crisis, this is you there, you're in the middle of that point. But then you have a choice. You're either going to go that way or that way. And if this is negative and you're thinking in a negative way, and you're feeling, and often you may not even realize you're thinking in a negative way, but think, you know, understand how you're feeling. If you're feeling, say, just bad or good, if you're feeling bad, you're going to go down this route. And if you're feeling good and thinking positive thoughts, you'll go up that way. But you're in the middle. And actually, however you feel, you do have a choice about that. You do have a choice. I know with depression, you can be overwhelmed completely, so you can't find your way out. But when the time, you know, just knowing that you have that tool there is important. So you're doing like a pivot. You just kind of, and I say to people, actually move. Get up and move, you know, rather than just thinking, oh yes, I can do this or that. Just get up and move from there. Okay, I'm feeling down, and all these thoughts are negative and everything. Actually turn your body so that you know you're going to go in that way, in the direction of something positive, because it's the movement makes a huge difference. And you know, when I work with people one-to-one or in groups, we spend ages doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
really, just to anchor these things in.
I think that is a danger with, being made redundant. It is, I mean, it is a shock. It is stressful.
Mm.
And, I am seeing people who are stuck in that place. They don't want to be there, but they're feeling stuck there. Maybe they're feeling like a victim. Maybe they're feeling just confused. They have the why me, 6 people in this room,
Absolutely.
one. So I suppose knowing that there is an option to move out of that.
It's hugely empowering knowing that there is that option. And then we come to sort of, how do you do that? Well, I mean, of course, there are so many, apart from, medication and talking therapies, there are lots of wonderful things. Mindfulness is endless proof that works. But sometimes when you're in that place, your mind can't stay still long enough to even begin to contemplate doing that. I think the very best thing to do is to make a point of noticing how you're thinking first thing in the morning, as soon as you're waking up. Absolutely, as soon as you're waking up, because that is a really crucial time, because you're merging into consciousness from sleep then. So the thoughts that you have then set the tone for the whole day. And they really do. I mean, it's amazing. So if you waken up and, I mean, say the face, if you're in a bed with somebody and the face next to you is sort of looking grumpy and miserable, well, that energy is going to attract you and everything becomes awful. If you're waking up and you're thinking, oh, another day, what am I going to do? It's going to be awful. And just thinking every negative thought under the sun, you've already programmed yourself. Before you're fully awake, you've programmed yourself, and you watch the rest of the day. Turns out it's like one thing after another, really, unless you do something about it. But you can make a point of noticing, hang on, that's right, I'm going to think something more positive now. Right. So what I suggest you do is you do this with real intention. So before you go to sleep at night, set the intention that you're going to notice your thoughts always. So just as you're going to bed, as you're falling asleep even, I'm going to notice what I'm thinking first thing in the morning. And be prepared even more than that. Have things there by your bed, early morning things that are going to help, that are going to make you feel good. And even having a note by the side of your bed, the first thing you see, what am I thinking? Even just to remind you, oh yeah, she said do that. And then you might have, pictures that appeal to you. It might be affirmations, which are short, powerful, positive statements about yourself in the first person always. You might have a few of those kind of just dotted around, or a little book of them that you can get to straight away. And then gratitude. I mean, we hear a lot about the practice of gratitude. Massively important. You can do it while you're lying in bed. Oh, I love these cushions around me. I love the duvet. I'm so grateful to have this, and to have this sort of coziness. I'm really grateful to be able to put my feet on a carpet. Just it's the minutiae, all those things. So it's not just thinking, oh yeah, I'm really grateful for this. It's letting them, just giving it a second or two to let them settle into your body, those feelings, the actual bodily sensations of that. Because we know that gratitude calms the emotions. And once you get used, this is the magic thing about all of this. Once you get used to doing these things, you start to do them more, and you start to look for things to be grateful for. And you start to look for things that are going to really lift you and put you in a better feeling place. It's a wonderful thing, but you have to buy into it. You have to be prepared to do it. And even if you're feeling really dreadful, you have to think, well, I know I can do these things. I've got a client, and she won't mind me saying this, I know, but she has, she really suffers with depression, and for her it's hugely hormonal, though there's lots of other stuff going on as well. And she says she really gets this work, by the way. She really gets it, and she's made a huge difference, all the stuff she's been doing that we've done together, to her life. But when she gets into a real depression, and it can be quite a few days, she just can't. She cannot get to anything. She can't even remember what we talked about let alone be able to use these things. But that's fine. That's fine, because she will eventually, she knows eventually she's going to come out of this, and then they're all there ready and waiting for her again.
Yeah.
So it's noticing the thoughts are the first thing. And the other way to do that, apart from first thing in the morning, which is important, people suggest maybe just recording on your phone, you know, what you're thinking, your thought stream is, and then playing it back and thinking, well, a bit negative that, or, you know, I'm okay. Jotting them down, anything like that. There's lots and lots of ways to do it, but I think first thing in the morning is the thing. But then the next thing, of course, is changing that. But that can be a fun thing, the actual playing with, so how am I going to change that from the negative to the positive? How can I put a different slant on that? And often it's the words that we use as much as anything else, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I would have really liked to have gone for a walk today, but I can't because it's raining. Well, you could say, I would really like to go for a walk today and it's raining, so I'll just put on my raincoat and go. So changing that but into an and opens the doors again. It's all about opening doors, because the depression closes down. The more optimistic you are, the different kind of attitude you have, the more open everything becomes.
Yeah. No, I like that. And again, there's also, I would have liked to go for a walk today, but I can stay in nice and cozy with the rain in the windows.
Allowing yourself to do that, allowing yourself, absolutely. And the other thing I wanted to say was about, if you don't mind me talking, something that did happen last night actually with the client I've just been speaking about. It's about vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because I think it's very important to recognise and own your vulnerability. And she came to a massive realisation last night, which was a surprise to both of us, because I thought she'd already realised this, which was that she is very vulnerable at particular times. And, you know, when she's feeling depressed and when she's in that thing. And so I've noticed the things she does behaviourally, which maybe aren't as helpful as they would be if she was in a more sound place to do it. So she takes decisions sometimes which she knows perhaps aren't the best, but she's so overwhelmed with how she feels that she just has to do it. You know, she feels she has to do it. And it occurred to her last night that yes, actually those are times when I am vulnerable. And of course, I always say to people, go with your gut instinct. That's the thing. It's with a balanced gut instinct, and balance is the operative word, because when you're feeling really depressed or anxious, your gut instinct might be slightly skewed by how you're feeling.
Okay. Yeah. And that might lead to problems.
Yeah. So it's important. So she said, well, that's a massive thing. I've just realized that, you know, that it is these certain times when I'm vulnerable, I make these decisions. So you recognize it. I use this term now since last night, raw. So remember that, because I think that's really important. The O, so that's the recognizing it. The second one, the O, is the owning it, owning the fact that you're vulnerable. And she said, actually, I could tell people I'm not in a good place to have this conversation today.
Makes sense.
You know, which does make sense, doesn't it? Because if we're all trying to understand each other, we should be able to just say, we don't have to give all the reasons, but it could be, I just need a bit more time. I have too many things going on. Or it could be saying, I'm feeling awful and I'm not in a good place. Just saying that, she's found saying it is actually really powerful, because it's not like you're hiding away or feeling terrible because you feel so awful. It's like, no, this is how it is for me. And then the A is, I did it last night, so I'm just having a quick look. And that is about authorizing your own absence.
Okay. Yeah.
What she's discovered is, if you give yourself permission, for example, to maybe be absent from social media for a day, perhaps, or pause what you're doing, give yourself an authorized pause to just be for a bit, to just let yourself off the hook of having to, you know, I know we have to, the job hunting and all that kind of thing, but maybe it just needs a break for one day even, or an afternoon or something like that. But you can authorize that yourself. I think this, I love this word raw, you know, recognize, own it, authorize. And then this one is, you know, the not even the return, it's the return renewed, because you've had that time out. So yes, you know, now I've had a bit of a break. Let's just, whoa, what's there? What could be there now? How could things look now? It's very empowering. But you have to do these things, and not just, I think this is a huge danger of talking about these things and actually not employing them. And I always say to people that I work with anyway, and particularly to the people I work with one-to-one, you've got to commit to this. Everything has to be intentional. You know, even laughter, which is that's a great mood booster. Be intentional about it. You don't have to sit and watch a funny film. Just let yourself start to giggle, because that, I mean, we know now that, you know, that the endorphins get raised, the cortisol level goes down and everything. And even if you're not feeling like having a laugh, which you won't be, obviously, and you'll hate everybody that laughs near to you and seems happy if you're feeling foul. But just pretend, because the subconscious doesn't know the difference and your body doesn't know the difference. So the more that you do it, the more it thinks, oh yeah, you know, let's get these endorphins going. Let's lower the cortisol, little by little, kind of baby steps. So you can just be walking around the house. You know, first thing in the morning, you start sort of perhaps pouring water into the tap and think, this is so boring. You know, before you know where you are, actually, believe me, you are laughing, you know, and it becomes a real thing.
Yeah.
Smiling's another one. Having a big smile on your face.
Yeah. No, I do know that tricks the brain into
it does.
The endorphin.
It's actually, yes, it's all about tricking, isn't it? In many ways. But it's allowing yourself to do this instead of trying to be terribly rational about everything.
One thing that struck me, the authorized absence. So some of the people that I talk to, their identity is tied in with achieving success. And obviously, having been made redundant, that is severely questioned. They you know, their identity has disappeared or been sort of broken in some way, and they're putting that same energy into the job applications and getting somewhere, which obviously from a practical viewpoint is good, but again, tying their identity to that is not a good idea. So I like the authorized absence in the way that they can give themselves time off and remember who they are. They are not their job hunt. They are not their previous job. They are them.
Exactly. Because, you know, none of us know what the future holds, and it is this uncertainty that sends everybody around the twist, because we don't like the uncertainty, generally speaking, of anything. You know, people need a certain amount of certainty. But, you know, there can be so many opportunities within this, so I can understand. And also the other thing is, everybody's different, aren't they? And some people's lives are, some people just are really driven sort of personalities. It's kind of people, and they're the ones that find it the most challenging to authorize an absence.
Yeah. Because
they're not doing and they're not achieving. But actually, if these people can just see it as they are probably doing and achieving more by having that time and allowing all the systems in your body to just integrate for a little bit and just to take a rest and then start again, it's a wonderful thing. So it is achieving. Authorizing an absence is achieving if you're doing it for the right reasons and in the right way, intentionally, I think.
Yeah. So question, you said about allowing your body systems to take a rest. So for me, that feels like resting is doing, not doing nothing, but, you know, at peace, at rest. Can you get the same effect from, I don't know, deciding you're going to go walking for the day, or, you know, doing something active, or is it more about rest?
Well, that's an interesting one because I have a whole workshop on this. It depends. It's about loafing, really,
Okay.
and just allowing yourself to intentionally loaf. Now, in my book, there are 3 categories, and this is something quite hard for people to get their heads around quite often. The first one is when you just allow yourself to just stop and maybe, splurge out in front of the telly, have a glass of wine, whatever you want to do. So long as it's intentional, that's fine. An hour, 2 hours, that's that kind of rest that you need. We all need, and I love that kind of loafing. Then category 2 is the going for a walk, the loafing about doing an activity for your own benefit. You're doing it intentionally because you know you're going to get some benefit from it. So it could be meditating, it could be doing a course in mindfulness, could be reading a book, it could be just doing any of these any activity that you know is going to benefit you. But the third category, and this is the one I'm particularly good at that I absolutely love, is when you do absolutely nothing at all.
Yeah.
You do nothing. You just allow yourself to just be. And you might just sit there and watch the clouds drifting, or just sit there and let yourself drift off. And if you drift off to sleep for a few minutes, it's fine. And the reason it's fine is because you're doing it on purpose. You're not beating yourself up, but you're doing it because you know why you're doing it. That's the thing.
I have to say, I don't think I go into number 3 very often.
No, and most people don't.
Yeah.
Most people don't. I have no problem at all.
That sounds very appealing. Yeah.
But it is. It's like, it's like those days on a warm, sunny day. If you've gone maybe for a picnic and you're lying in the grass, you listen to all the sounds of the insects, and the sun's up above and the clouds are just drifting, and you feel the breeze, and it's almost like a creative relaxation, except that it could be that, but it's just that you're intending, right, everything stop, let's just see what comes in, because it's those moments when we become inspired, truly inspired, not from our minds, but from a kind of a deeper place. And we often get the answers that we need in those moments of stillness and quiet. And I think we all need more of those. We must authorize those more for ourselves. I'll authorize them for you.
Yeah, and I suppose there is a danger if you think, right, today I'm going to switch off today, and I'm going to go for a 5-mile hike, or I'm going to walk, or it becomes another form of achievement, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes, if you're aware that that's what it is,
and which is not what we want in this case. We want proper rest.
Yeah, it's loaf. Just look at it as loafing. Look at it as laziness, if you like. You see, lazy is this word which has these awful negative connotations, and I love lazy. What's wrong with lazy? If you're deciding to be lazy, then you're taking responsibility, and this is it. We can take responsibility for how we are, so it's okay. I do understand it's a big one, and it's a real workshopy one, this, because it's such an alien concept to a lot of people, one that people feel very uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
Some people, unless you me.
I have to admit, I often feel a bit uncomfortable doing nothing.
You see, it's that little voice in our head, isn't it? If you think about it, I wonder where that has actually come from. I mean, as I mentioned, I'm also a hypnotherapist, and many times, we get these, when somebody's sitting there in hypnosis, suddenly it will come to them that something has happened in their lives that set them on a program for the rest of their life, and they had no idea. And it wasn't a bad thing. Maybe it was something their mother said or a carer or an adult, anybody said, in love and kindness, meaning the best. And that's what happened, and that's how it was done. But I always remember my granny used to get really I remember her once being really annoyed with me. She'd have me on a stool peeling potatoes. I remember that. And then one day I was just sort of loafing happily, because I did a lot of that when I was a kid, playing, and she said to me, so many things to do. She said, why aren't you doing this? And I wasn't very old, really. But I said, well, I don't know what to do. And she said, well, you should know what to do. And I always remember that. And I think, and you know, she was just stressed out and she was a very loving woman. But I think that actually put me on a program for years and years and years. You should be doing this. You've got to be doing this. You've got to be, you know, you really ought to be doing this. And in fact, I think I probably, because I developed an anxiety disorder in my 20s. And I think that somewhere in the background might have been part of it, you know, that I just wasn't doing enough. You've got to do it. You've got this life. You've just got to do. No, you don't have to. If we all spent a bit more time loafing about, I think the world would be a much nicer place, because really people would come from the heart and the soul, instead of from this kind of monkey mind churning round all the time.
One thing that I've noticed though is that if people are feeling depressed and anxious, actually doing stuff often makes them feel a little bit better, because they're in a bit of control. Perhaps they feel they're getting stuff done. So that loafing, if you are feeling depressed, could be quite challenging, couldn't it? Because
I think absolutely. No, you're absolutely right, Paula. And loafing has to be intentional when you're in a relatively good place, at least. The better a place you are in order to be intentional about it, the better, because you know why you're doing it and what it's for. But if you are depressed, I mean, you know, one of the key things is that it can be really hard to do anything, to even speak, let alone get out of bed in the morning, you know. So, and that's not loafing. That is not loafing. That is unwellness and dis-ease, really. So, no, I mean, these are all just kind of tools. We have to be sensible about it. And it's when it suits us, and when those various tools, huge toolbox that I offer to people, they have to be appropriate at the right time for the right person. And exercise is a really important part of depression, because we know it raises all the endorphins, like laughter, all that kind of thing, and just gets everything moving. And you might feel great for a while after. There'll be, you know, it might be 10 minutes, might be an hour, might be 2 hours, might be a whole day. Could be, and as time goes on, it might get to be more and more. But depression, the thing is, depression's a bit of a big unknown, isn't it? You know, nobody quite knows how to fix it, or people wouldn't be depressed.
Yeah.
And so, and of course, it's in those moments when you really just want somebody to pick you up and fix you. But then, you know, it doesn't work like that. Tablets may well work for a lot of people. They can change people's lives. Of course they can. But then I think there comes a time when it is about taking responsibility, and being gentle with yourself, but just knowing that there are tools that you can use, that you really can use to start to change things. And it is to do with thinking and feeling, definitely. But it's a tricky one. I mean, this is why there's so many wonderful techniques like mindfulness, CBT, all of these kinds of things that help people so much. You know, there are hundreds and hundreds of ways. I try to just make things as simple as possible, so that people can use what of the tools that I offer suit them. You know, when I'm working one-to-one with a person, we kind of decide together, because you get to know each other very well. But I know people often, when they're feeling unwell with depression, you know, people do feel like a statistic and just left on the shelf, even though it seems to depend in which area of the country you live in the UK, as to what help you get. And it's very difficult for people.
Being made redundant is going to make you feel more of a statistic as well.
Absolutely, just another one. But it also makes you feel more of a victim, because you feel that's something that's been done to you. And I think it's so important to get away from that kind of victim feeling, because it's, you know, we can't change the circumstances, can we? And we can't necessarily change the circumstances. We certainly can't change the way that other people behave. But we can always do something about how much that's going to impact upon us
Mm, mm.
by adjusting our thoughts and
Yeah.
feelings. If we know that, but this is the thing, a lot of people don't know that they can make adjustments in the way that they're thinking about things. It can make a huge, huge difference to us. And of course, as I say, the thoughts and feelings, which go side by side, I mean, completely. So
I know there are going to be some people listening to this who are, this is going to be completely new for them, and they may think about, oh, this is, I'm not quite sure about this. And there are some people who are going to be, you know, actually perhaps needing some clinical help from their GP or whatever. But for those first people who are perhaps thinking, moving your energy, laughing, I'm not sure about this. Just listening to you here, I mean, my thoughts are, put that aside, it doesn't really matter. If you are feeling like this, then maybe taking out 2 weeks or a month to practice these things, almost as your own experiment, and seeing how they work for you is the way to go.
Yes, and that is, thank you, Paula, because that is exactly my message to anybody, because a lot of people will think, well, she's away with the fairies when they listen to this. I know they will, and that's fine, because it may not be your time to hear what I'm saying. You know, it's different for everybody, but it's so true. Be your own experiment, try them. When I say there's no evidence for certain things, there's lots out there, but it's just not necessarily been measured in the way that, say, things are measured with the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, that kind of thing. It's take the risk, you know, just like you say, try it, be your own, and if it doesn't work for you, fine.
Well, I know there's lots of evidence for gratitude, there's lots of evidence for lots of evidence for mindfulness. So there is, there's plenty of evidence out there, both measured, researched, and anecdotal evidence.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And you just, some of the sort of slightly more outlandish things, like talking about vibrate. I mean, vibrational energy, it's tuning yourself to a frequency. That's all you're doing with this. When you're in that place, you're tuning yourself to whichever frequency you choose to tune yourself to. And if your frequency, if you choose to tune yourself to a frequency of, oh, it's bloody awful, I don't know what I'm going to do, then you'll be on that frequency. But you can just tune yourself to the frequency of, you know, more positive, open, optimistic thinking. And there, of course, there's lots of techniques about how to change your thinking, which we wouldn't have time to go into here right now. But if you can do that, you'll find from your own experience, I bet you, that it'll make quite a difference to you. Quite a difference. And you'll find there's lots of anecdotal evidence and lots of case studies. There's all sorts of things all over the internet. So, and people who are far more eloquent than I am in describing how it works, put it that way. You know, we talk about the different.
Putting your mental state aside, if we just think about the job hunting for the moment, and you go into an interview, and if you go in that negative, oh, they're not going to get me anyway, you're not going to get it. But if you go in thinking, you know, this may be perfect for me, or at the very least, I'm going to get some good interview practice, then that's when the things are going to happen for you, isn't it?
Yes, and also if you go in and you've got it in your mind, well, let me see what I think. I think I'll see what I think about this one. Do I like this person? You know, you're kind of interviewing them as well, aren't you? With that. And then understanding that, you know, if you don't get it, well, you don't get it. You know, but at least if you're in the right frame of mind, it's going to help. And that, again, is to do with energy, because people get energy from each other, and people pick up on people's negative energy, don't they? I mean, places and things, you know, if you're not comfortable somewhere, if you're not comfortable with somebody around you, and you know, if you like the energy that somebody's giving off, you want to spend time with them. So yeah, it's very important to get yourself into that. In fact, the whole thing about, and you know, this thing about not perhaps being depressed and then not feeling able to job hunt and all of that. But strange enough, this client that I had yesterday said that her mother used to talk about rescuing the day. That I feel if I've done something because she experienced depression, so I said, if I feel that I've done something in this awful place I'm in, then I've rescued the day.
Yeah.
You know, see, there's all, and I think that's empowering, and I've encouraged her to take it a step further and think about rescued and almost like restored or something the day. So it's not just a rescue, but it's a positive yes kind of thing about it.
Excellent. Well, lots of empowering ideas there to get your energy shifted there from Caroline. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Caroline. And
my pleasure.
All Caroline's details will be below the video.
Okay, good luck everybody. Thank you.